Over the past few days, several pro members have shared some incredible websites featuring stunning page transitions. One common pattern across these sites is how the new page transitions in while the current page is still visible, creating a seamless effect. This effect has been around for a while, and even the latest Site of the Day winner from January 27th used a similar pattern. And if you have explored award-winning websites recently, you have probably noticed this effect where both the old and new pages overlap momentarily, making the transition look really cool. So I figured it was time to break it down and show you exactly how to build this. In today's video, we'll recreate this page transition from scratch using the combo of Navigation API and the View Transition API. We'll use the Navigation API to help us intercept page changes and manage content updates, the View Transition API to handle the animations between page states, and for the actual animations, we'll use CSS keyframes. I'll also show you how you can apply GSAP animations after the transition finishes along with Lenis smooth scroll to make everything feel extra smooth. Since this was my first experiment with the View Transition API, I started with a basic HTML setup to explore how it works for a multi-page site, but after this, I'm definitely gonna try using it in React and Next.js too. So drop a like on the video and hit that subscribe button too if you haven't already. Let's get into the code now. I have got 3 empty pages, a home page, an about page, and a work page. First, let's set up a basic navigation bar on the home page. I'll divide it into 2 columns, a logo on one side and navigation links on the other. For the links, I'll use simple anchor elements, but I'll wrap each one inside a div so we can apply a clip mask on the wrapper and animate the actual links through it later. Once the navbar is set up, I'll copy and paste it onto the other 2 pages as well. Next, I'll add some placeholder content, but this part is optional. I'm only adding this to match the demo I showed earlier, but you don't actually need any of it. On the home page, I'll create a container and place an h1 inside a div with the class name hero. On the about page, I'll add a container and a wrapper called info, splitting it into 2 columns. The first column will have a portrait image inside an image tag. The second column will contain some placeholder text inside a paragraph tag. Now for the work page, I'll add a container with a wrapper for images, and inside it, I'll place 4 images. And that's it, we don't need much. With the navbar on each page, we have got just enough to switch between the pages. Now let's add some styling to make everything look better. But again, this part is optional. I've added timestamps as well, so if you want, you can skip straight to the section where we define the keyframes for the transition animation. We won't spend much time on the styling since it doesn't really matter for the transition itself. So I'll quickly walk you through it, but we won't go into super details. This is just to set up the page structure so we can focus on the actual transition. Alright, let's start by defining some global styles. We'll remove any default margins and padding and set box sizing to border box. Then we'll set the HTML and body to take up the full width and height of the screen. I'll also set a custom font for the body and apply a black background color. For images, we'll make sure they cover their container fully using object-fix set to cover. Now let's define the container. This will act as the main wrapper for each page. We'll set its width to 100 viewport width and height to 100% with a min height of 100 viewport height. The background color is set to a light gray. Next, let's style the navigation bar. We'll make it fixed at the top. It stretches across the full width and has some padding for spacing. Inside the nav, we have a logo on the left and links on the right, so we'll use display flex with justify content space between to position them properly. Each link inside a div which has a clip path applied. This is important because later we'll animate the links through it. For the actual links, we'll set them to inline block, remove any default text decorations, and position them so we can animate their movement later. For now, I'll set their Y position to 0 so they are visible, but later we'll hide it behind the clip path to prepare it for the animation. Now let's move to the hero section on the home page. We'll center the H1 on the screen using position absolute and the transform technique. The text is uppercase, bold, and huge, around 20 viewport width and size. Just like the links, the H1 also has a clip path applied This is because later we'll split it into individual letters and animate them separately. Inside the H1, we'll have character spans, which will hold each letter. These spans are relative, so we can animate their position independently. Next, the work page. Here we have a container with the images wrapper inside. The images are stacked vertically with some spacing, and we center them using margin 0 auto. Each image is set to 35% width to keep them balanced on the page. On the About page, we have a container with an info wrapper. We'll set display flex to create a column layout. The second column is again set to display flex and align item center and justify content center so the text stays in the middle. The paragraph text inside this column is styled with some basic CSS to make it stand out. Now, similar to the H1, we'll later split the paragraph into lines so we can animate each line separately. That's why we are wrapping them inside line spans. Each line span inside the paragraph also has a clip path applied because later we'll animate the text using it. And that's it for the styling. Again, you don't really need to focus on this part, it's just to make the page look structured. Next, it's time to define the keyframes and actually start working on the transition animation. Before we dive into keyframes, let me first briefly mention what the View Transition API does. Basically, it provides a built-in mechanism for animating transition between different views, whether in single-page apps or multi-page apps. The thing is, creating these transitions required complex JavaScript and CSS, especially for handling content updates, positioning, preventing user interactions with old elements, etc. But with this API, the browser handles these complexities, allowing us to animate between pages smoothly. So let's first define our animations. We need two key animations, one for the old page leaving and one for the new page entering. The move out animation makes the current page fade out and move upward as the transition starts. At the start, the page is fully visible and stays in its position. And by the end, the page fades out slightly and moves up by 35%, creating a lifting effect. Now, as the old page moves out, we need to bring the new page into view with a smooth reveal effect. So, the move in animation controls how the new page is revealed by manipulating the clip path property. At the start, the entire page is hidden below the viewport. At the end, the clip path expands, revealing the new page smoothly from bottom to top. Now that we have got animations ready, we need to tell the browser where to apply them using special built-in elements called View Transition Pseudo Elements. We'll apply these elements on the root because we want the transition to be applied to the full page, not just specific elements. So first, we'll attach the move out animation to View Transition Old, which represents the outgoing page with the duration of 1.5 seconds and cubic Bezier easing. We then apply the move in animation to View Transition New on the root, which represents the incoming page. With this setup, the old page fades out and moves up while the new page reveals itself from the bottom up, creating a smooth and natural transition between pages. However, these animations won't work just yet because we need a way to actually trigger these transitions between pages. By default, when you click a link to another page, the browser performs a full page reload, which prevents our transitions from running. This is where the navigation API comes in. Let me tell you that initially I tried to solely rely on the View Transitions API as I saw some blogs using just the CSS approach where they defined View Transition with Navigation Auto. But to be honest, it didn't work well for me. The transitions were pretty inconsistent, sometimes working and sometimes not, and it seemed to have very limited control over the whole process. And I think it's also possible that I might have done something wrong, but I decided to go with a more straightforward and reliable route by combining it with the navigation API. This combination gives us complete control over when the content updates happen, how the transitions are timed, and how scroll behavior works. We can even add loading states or handle errors if needed. So let's dive into the JavaScript. First, we check if the browser supports the navigation API. This ensures our code only runs in browsers that can handle these transitions. Then we listen for any navigate events. These events fire whenever a user tries to navigate to a new page, like when clicking a link. Before handling the navigation, we perform a quick check. We verify if the destination URL includes our website's origin. This ensures we only handle navigation within our own website, not to external sites. Now comes the interesting part. When a user clicks a link, normally the browser would right away start loading the new page and unload the current one. But that's not what we want. We need both pages to exist temporarily so we can animate between them. That's where the intercepting comes in. By using intercept event, we are telling the browser to wait and not load the page its way, just so we can handle this transition however we want. Inside our handler, we first use fetch to get the content of the new page we want to navigate to. This is like downloading the HTML of that page, but without actually navigating to it. We then convert this response to text. We then use startViewTransition method, which is a special function from ViewTransition API that lets us smoothly transition between two states of our page. It's like telling the browser, hey, I'm about to make some changes, but I want you to animate between the old and new states. Inside this transition function, we do two main things. First, we use a regular expression with match function to find everything between the body text of our new page. Think of it like extracting just the content we need from the new page. We then update the current page's content to this new content. Similarly, we extract the page title to match the new page. The startViewTransition function automatically takes a snapshot of our page before these changes and after them. These snapshots are what enable those smooth animations we defined in our CSS earlier. Finally, we wait until the transition is actually ready to start. At this exact moment, we reset the scroll position to the top using scroll_to method. This timing is important because it ensures the scroll reset happens at just the right moment during our transition. That's actually all you need to create these seamless page transitions. For those who are curious about how to add smooth scrolling and animate elements on the new page, let me cover that for you. First, let's look at Lenis, which gives us that smooth scrolling experience. We create a function called initializeLenis. If there is already a Lenis instance running, we destroy it first to prevent any conflicts. Then we create a new Lenis instance with autoref enabled for automatic rendering, and smooth wheel is set to true for smooth mouse wheel scrolling. We use request animation frame to update Lenis on every frame, ensuring smooth performance. Now for the animations, we are using GSAP and split type to create some nice entrance animations for our content. In our initialize animations function, we handle three different scenarios. First, we animate our navigation links, bringing them down into view with a slight stagger effect between each link. For the hero section, if it exists on the page, we use split type to split the heading into individual characters. We initially set them below the viewport, then we animate them up one by one, creating a staggered entrance effect. And for the about page text, we do something special. We split the text into lines, wrap each line in a span, and animate them up into view with a staggered delay. This creates a smooth line-by-line reveal effect. Finally, we make sure to initialize both Lenis and our animations when the page first loads and also after each page transition. This ensures our smooth scroll and animations work consistently across all pages. So that was it. Hope you found the video helpful. See you in the next one.